Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to today's Grey Market Blast with myself and the amazing Angie Setzer. Before we go any further, just the legals out the way because I don't want to get into any trouble like I usually do. Nothing discussed on this place assessment constitute trading or investment advice or infers any kind of endorsement by PIQ Global Limited, Traders PIQ or PIQ Suite, or indeed the hosts, which as you know by now is the hostess with the mostess, Mrs. Angie Setzer, and myself, the little elf Ryan Paisley.
The super awesome elf that can. That's
Oh,
what.
do you know what? I needed this today because I'm having such a bad day, and I was thinking, do you know what? I was thinking, do you know what? When I get on the show with Angie, she's gonna be just brimming with positivity, and it's gonna hopefully like overlap and cover me in positivity. Cover me in your positivity.
I can do that for you, I promise. I actually had a customer call me the other day and he's like, anytime I'm down, I just call Angie. She helps me feel better. And I'm
It's
like,
so true.
if
It's
there's
so
nothing else that
true.
I can do in the world, I am just going to make you feel better on your bad days. So I did just tweet though recently. I am definitely long on both. I'm tired of this grandpa, and that's too damn bad. So maybe we're having the same type of mood here. But let's rock and roll. We just got a new trade update, right? Some headlines are flashing here this morning for us. President Trump clarified there was some confusion yesterday, though I think it was pretty clear that it was in a time of misspeaking for him, or he just kind of messed it up. There's so many deadlines; it's hard to keep them all straight, I guess. And so there was a conversation late yesterday where, he had mentioned, yeah, when the tariffs come on Mexico and Canada in April. And everyone was like, oh, he's delaying the tariffs. No. So this morning he had to come out and reiterate, I am definitely not. I think that at this point we can call this an escalation, but he did say that the flow of drugs across the border has, basically not stopped. It is continuing unencumbered. And so until that takes place, he's not only going to make sure that the tariffs go on Mexico and Canada next week on Tuesday, there's also a new 10% tariff that is going on China on Tuesday. And so that is interesting to see, just
Trump tariff
because.
Tuesday. There you go.
Yes. Woohoo! I feel like Dr. Seuss now. But yeah, so Trump tariffs on Tuesday. Have fun. It'll be a good weekend. I mean, overall, we're definitely going to see a risk off approach with all of this. I mean, it's a pretty big deal to see that happen. And one of the things that I'm looking at right now in particular is that if we were to see these tariffs put on when it comes, especially with Canada right now, I think that could start to really bring into question if we will see the acres in corn that folks are thinking we may see. In addition, if we did see the acres in corn that folks are thinking we will see, if we do have a 25% tariff on imports, and we have a large amount of our inputs, our fertilizers, our nitrogens, and things like that coming in from Canada, it really could impact our overall ability to produce a crop with a margin, not only with a margin, but one of decent size. I'm not saying we're gonna have a crop failure or anything silly like that, but a 181 across the country gets a little hard to accomplish if you do see customers or farmers having to cut their inputs on things, as we move ahead. And so it'll be interesting to watch and see how that influences everything. We've talked about this before. With anything with President Trump, you have to figure that you're going to get 3 to 5, maybe more headlines. It might even double that number here at the rate we're going. But it's one of those things where you're going to get several different headlines. And then you're going to have also an escalation before a resolution. And so I feel like we're at the escalatory portion of our trip here. And so we'll see what happens today. I kind of feel bad for the Mexico's officials there, because they're hanging out in DC. They're trying their little hearts out,
Yeah, right.
like to try to come up with something. And Trump's like, just not good enough. It's not good enough. And so I guess we'll see if there is anything that can can be good enough or
Yeah,
not.
you
And
kind of feel like they are making an effort at least.
they're
They've gone all
really
that way.
trying. Yeah. And she's done great. Sheinbaum for, her. I
Yeah.
definitely thought it would be more of a oil and water type thing. You know what I mean? Like, I did not think that they would get along real well when it all came down to it.
Yeah,
Not
massively
say,
surprised.
yeah, I'm not saying that they're getting along swimmingly and are going
Yeah,
to
but they're a lot
vacation at
better than the.
Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe we just had a really low bar.
I think I did. Yeah. So I'm satisfied, at this point. But it's definitely one of those things we have to watch. We did see a slowdown in corn A lot of folks will say, oh, corn export sales were really poor today because I think they came in below 800,000 metric tons. Really, we're still well ahead of the pace needed to meet the USDA numbers. And to see a bit of a slowdown with the uncertainty over freight costs and what that could look like in 3 months, because we have that hearing March 24th. And we talked about that. Like, if you come in and you buy corn right now, if you're buying a 60,000 metric ton load of corn and you put it on a ship that has, over 50% of the fleet is owned by China, you're going to pay another $2.50 worth of freight, basically, if you get charged that $1,000,000. And it could be $1.5 million or more. We just don't know. And so I think that's playing a little bit of a role. In general, we just have so much uncertainty. We have to sit back and take a minute. We did get the USDA 0.2 or 3. I'm not sure. I think that first one was like 3 points in a trench coat, all stacked on top of one another. But we did get the USDA Outlook Forum numbers today. Pretty much came in as traders were expecting, which I'm old enough to remember when we didn't have trade expectations ahead of the Outlook Forum. It used to be one
And
of
all
those
this is
things.
orange groves.
Right. Yeah. We're like, oh, there's a forum number today, but social media and things like that, it builds up that excitement. The Outlook Forum numbers, though, came in around 94 million acres of corn planted, 181. So the USDA left their trendline yield unchanged year over year, which was interesting. So that came in with a larger production number, using that 181. Now, the 181 is 1.7 bushels better than our previous record. So that'll be interesting to see how the year plays out and what we see there. They increased feed and residual because of the bigger crop in their expectations. They left ethanol unchanged because they figure gasoline demand will remain somewhat steady, and they trimmed exports back a little bit in corn, which was surprising. They pointed to larger South American supplies. And we've talked about kind of some of the contrast that we're seeing between what South American traders think and what the USDA is thinking when it comes down to it. But they did say that larger South American supplies will cut into U.S. exports. And basically that put carry out at 1.965 billion. So a lot of folks right now are going to be like, that's a big number, but I'd like to caution and remind everyone, last year their projection for corn stocks was 2.54, I believe. And we currently are sitting a billion bushels below that. And so it's nice to have these numbers. It's nice to kind of have a landscape at which we can look to see what happens next. But it's a long way before this crop's in the bin and we know what we're using. Beans did see a reduction. And what's most surprising to me is that people were surprised that we saw a trim and carry out for soybeans.
I'm surprised that you're surprised.
Oh my gosh. Like, everyone's like, wait a minute, supplies are getting smaller in soybeans for next year. I'm like, what did you think was going to happen? We're looking to trim acres over 3 million. The USDA's come in with a really, really stout sort of yield projection. They anticipate crush will continue to grow, which we know capacity is continuing to be built, even with margins not as great. Exports, they did bump up a little, which we'll fight about that later, I guess. And it brought ending stocks in a little bit lower than what, or maybe it's in line, but traders did see it. It went down year over year, surprised a few of them. No one really cares about wheat, but we did see the wheat carry out also expected to increase year over year. But most of that is just simply because of a larger amount of beginning stocks that we have. The crop's going to be smaller, demand's going to be flat, beginning stocks are larger. So we're just going to have more wheat chilling. Overall, these numbers don't mean much, but they give us sort of an insight into what is the USDA expecting for demand, because you will see a lot of these demand figures probably get put into the new crop outlook. Once we get acres, we'll get acres at the end of March. And then what we'll see happen in May is, basically they'll take the new acres numbers, take a lot of these demand figures, take their production, their yield number, and then we'll get our new crop outlook. And then Mother Nature will have the say on everything else. Well, Mother Nature and economics. So we'll see what happens there. Maybe the president with trade, just a few things to be paying attention to.
Just a few variables.
Yes. Last thing to touch on is that there is a lot of talk now that we are seeing the drought build in portions of eastern Brazil, eastern Mato Grosso, a lot of the states right there, east to Mato Grosso. I don't want to embarrass myself by trying to pronounce them because everyone will laugh at me. And really one of those things though that we have to pay attention to. The cooler temperatures are the savior at this point. They're not really expecting much in the way of big heat, but they are anticipating, pretty limited rainfall. And I've had a few of my meteorologist friends kind of pop into my DMs and be like, hey, be careful, heads up. There are some things to be watching here. Nico had said it before, don't sleep on South American weather. And so there's some interesting dynamics that are happening between Brazil and the Argentina as well.
Yeah.
Brazilian supply availability for corn is almost non-existent. They had thought they would see first crop harvest come off. It's a little bit smaller than anticipated. Demand has been much greater. Safrina is delayed, so the farmer's not selling as much. And a lot of folks had thought, well, maybe we'll see Argentina corn work into southern Brazil. But at this point, Argentina corn spiked because of potential delays in harvest there. And so we'll have to see. There's a lot of moving pieces. Tariffs are going to get all the attention today. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised to see some continued pressure on corn.
Yeah.
Maybe we won't hold this lower level that we've seen. The good news is we have pretty decent support underneath us. And when it comes down to it, it's one of those things where if we do see prices drop, suddenly you have to take into consideration, what does this mean for new crop? What does this mean for old crop demand? Because right now we've seen cash prices invert pretty heavily for corn around the world. And so there's a few things that are happening out there that could really kind of turn explosive eventually, but in the short term, the trade negativity and just the overall kind of meh sort of feeling that we get at the end of
There's
February is
there's a lot of, yeah.
yeah.
I know what you think. Funny enough, I mentioned this morning on the other show we did. It's like there's a lot of things out there like it's not important until it's really fucking important.
Yes,
You know what
100%.
I mean?
Yeah, and that's when everyone's going to wake up and be like, what the hell just happened? And it might be one way or the other. But yeah, there's a lot of things. I did an interview here just a little bit earlier, and it mentioned the butterfly effect in agriculture.
Yeah.
And obviously we have a butterfly effect everywhere. But what's funny, is that in ag, you can have something happen on a random Tuesday. You read the story, you think to yourself, huh, that's interesting. You know what I mean? And you don't think about it for 10 days, 10 weeks, 10 months, whatever. And then all of a sudden it comes back with a shovel and hits you in the face. And you just don't realize that, oh, well, this started with Indonesia at B40 or whatever. And then it rippled all the way through the rest of the world's market structure. And so just really one of those things where keep your head on a swivel, as a trader, as a farmer, don't spend too much time beating yourself up, with what the market is doing. Just kind of take this opportunity to gather your wits and decide where your targets want to be when we do see any type of correction that could come from a weather event or something like that. And we'll see what happens. But yeah, today will be trade, and Trump is definitely making sure he's escalating the trade rhetoric. And I think that'll be kind of a bit of a bummer. It'll be hard to work through today from a sentiment standpoint, in my opinion. So hopefully that means we close higher and I look like an idiot.
Fingers crossed.
Right?
Um,
Yes, please.
Angie, thank you so much as always for being, as I said, the hostess with the mostess. Also, big shout out to Ashley. Hello, Ashley. We love seeing Ashley on the show. But yeah, listeners, thank you as always for tuning in, especially our regular ones. And yeah, we'll see you tomorrow. Stay safe.
Have a good one.